Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're gonna get into this May reading wrap up. It's been so long since I actually done a reading wrap up. This is the first one I'm doing actually in 2025, so let's get into it because I might have went a little bit crazy. Also, I'm currently drinking on a vanilla iced latte with cinnamon bun cold foam, and y'all, let me tell you, it's literally so freaking good. But let's go ahead and get started into this May reading wrap up because we know I could flap these jaws for a very long time. So let's just get into the nitty gritty. As you can see, I have this big stack of books. So we're going to go ahead and get into everything that I read in May. I'm also going to include my Kindle reads. These are just on my physical copies. And I'm also going to include any books that I DNF. I normally don't include my DNFs, but this is the year we're going to start including my DNFs. So let's get into it. So the very first book I read in May was actually a DNF. I read Main Characters by Hannah Ornstein. And this was an arc that was sent to me through Penguin Random House. But I really couldn't get into it. I think I made it maybe 35% through. But the story really wasn't clicking with me. So I decided to DNF. This book did come out on May 13th, which was my birthday. But if you want to give it a chance. But it wasn't for me. It had like two sisters. It was marketed as like an adult version of The Parent Trap, and I don't know, for some reason like I just really couldn't get into the characters or the setting or the plot, so I decided to not continue on with it. Moving on, I ended up reading The Teacher by Frida McFadden, which is a psychological thriller, and I'm giving this book 2 stars. I didn't really care for the book. The ending had a really good twist that I wasn't expecting. I would say that caught me off guard, but for the majority of this book I kind of was just like forcing myself to finish because it's Frida. And I feel like for psychological thrillers or any thriller mystery books, it's really hard to say like you didn't like it if you didn't finish it, because like you need to see it through to understand the twist. But when I was just reading this, in the beginning it started off so strong. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a really good book. And then as we kept going, the middle of the book, it just started to feel really repetitive and stuff. So I just was not really a big fan of The Teacher. So this is probably like one of my like lowest rated Frida McFadden's books, but I could see why other people will enjoy it. It just wasn't a book for me. Second, I jumped back into this romantasy. This is Forbidden Realms by Mike Corlin. This is the second book in the Broken Blades trilogy, and I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I kind of really also did not know what to expect coming into this book, because I also gave the first book 3 stars as well. I would say this book is definitely more character driven than plot driven, but we'll start having that heist. We're following the same characters from the first book. I believe there's 5 different characters, and we're following, if I'm speaking correctly, I think this is following Korean like mythology, and a lot of stuff happened. I would definitely say this is more of a filler book, but the end of that book absolutely had me hooked, and I'm so excited that the 3rd book is actually coming out in July. I do not have to wait a whole nother year, because the way the book ended, it had me absolutely shook. It was a great book, had a really good premise. I enjoyed the characters. There's some characters that I like more than others, but that's to be expected when you're having 5 different POVs that you're following along. So I'm excited to see how she's going to end this trilogy. And yeah, but I have really nothing bad to say. The 3rd book I ended up reading in May was The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, another psychological thriller, and I ended up giving this book 4 stars. We're following the main characters of Sydney, and she basically meets this boy on an app, and she goes and she dates people, but then there's a mass murderer on a loose who's basically kind of like copying other serial killer from in the past, and we're following that story. And let me tell you guys, I could not put this book down. I finished this book in 1 day. Every time I thought I knew something, I didn't. Frida really had me hooked from beginning to end, and I really appreciated The Boyfriend. Sounded so good. It sounded so different. I was nervous because when I first read the synopsis, I was just like, please don't be another locked door, which I've also read by Frida. I thought that's what we were gonna get, but no, baby. When I say come into this book blind and don't try to guess anything, truly just read for the experience, because every time you think you're onto something, Frida's gonna say, no baby, not that one. and I digress. I feel like that's all there is to say. If you want a really good twisty plot, a good twisty book, I definitely would recommend The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. The fourth book I ended up reading in May was The Davenports More Than This by Crystal Marquise, which is the second book in the Davenports series. I don't know if this is a duology or if there's going to be a third book, but I ended up giving this book 3 stars, and this is a historical fiction, I guess you can say. And I really didn't have any expectations coming into this because I did not really enjoy the first book. And you're probably thinking, if you didn't enjoy the first book, why are you seeing this through? I'm seeing this through because the first book was her debut novel and she was a debut author. And I feel like new authors, indie authors deserve all the grace in the world. So I decided to continue on with this book. And nonetheless, my same sentiments that I had in the first book are the same sentiments I expressed in this second book, where it's like we have so many characters to follow that they start to feel a little muddled because their stories were kind of a little bit of the same in a way. But also, I did listen to the audio, and there was only one narrator for all. I think there's like 4 different characters that we're following, so that also made it a little bit harder to differentiate. But I really wish that Crystal Marquise would have just really broken up these characters, or maybe that like 1 or 2 POVs, or didn't have the Bridgerton series was done where like we meet the whole family, we know all who our characters are, but they all have their own book. We can go in depth with them, because I feel like because there's so many characters, we're only really scratching the surface about each of these characters. Nonetheless, I would say Amy Rose is definitely my favorite character. I do have this thing where I give an author 3 tries before I decide an author is not for me. So I will be looking out for whatever Crystal Marquise has next to put out. But I do think this is a pretty good book. It's really decent. I do think I can understand why people would enjoy and like this novel, but I really feel like she did what she needed to do. Book number 5 was Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Nye. I ended up giving this book 4 stars, and guys, this book was freaking phenomenal to the writing. Shakers, we're following our 2 main characters. We have Mia, we have Pearl, and I forget the other names, and Elena. So we have Mia, Pearl, and Elena. We're in Shaker Heights. This book takes place in Cleveland, Ohio, but Shaker Heights is basically a cookie-cutter community, and we're basically following how Elena feels like she's above people, but she needs to give back to the people who are less than her because it makes her feel better about herself. And then we following the story of Mia and Pearl, where they're always like moving around together because her mother is an artist. But basically, it gets crazy, but I really love the juxtaposition between perfectionism and like kind of being messy and not having your life together, picking up and moving all the time. I understood Pearl and her decision as a kid and how she feels like Elena was kind of like a surrogate mom. Oh my god, I did not know what to expect going into this because this is a new author for me, but I'm so glad that I actually picked this book up and I actually decided to read it in May. This author did not disappoint. The story did not disappoint. I feel like if you're somebody who likes to read stuff that you can relate back into the real world and you can really pick out things that are happening fictionally and like relate back to it, I feel like this would be that perfect kind of book. I don't know if this book is considered women's fiction or actual fiction, but god, I love this book and I do highly recommend that other people give this book a try. I thought it was very phenomenal and I really do think this is a great read. Alrighty, for book 6, I ended up reading Spectacular by Stephanie Garber, which is the Caraval holiday novella. You're probably like, why are you reading a holiday novel mid-year? I don't know, I just needed something that was just gonna, pick me up, and that book did exactly that. This book is a YA fantasy and I'm giving it 3 stars. And she was cute. She did exactly what she needed to do. I feel like there's not much to say. This story does mainly follow Legend and Donatella, which, if you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Donatella, but it was cute. The story was really good. This is more about, Legend kind of like doing something for Donatella, but Donatella is kind of like playing a game, and I just thought this was a cute little addition to the Caraval series, and I just feel like Stephanie Garber just does such a good job at always sucking you back right into the world of Caraval, and it just feels like every time I start another novel by her regarding Caraval, it just feels like you never leave. but she was good. I definitely highly recommend people read this book if you ever get the chance. Alrighty, so the next book I ended up reading was called If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nolan, which is a prequel slash the second book to If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. And oh my god, 5 stars. This is a YA romance book, and this book tore my heartstrings apart, which I was expecting. The first book also was emotionally devastating for me, but the navigation of motherhood and grief, I feel like it takes a really good author to be able to depict emotions, but also depicting emotions in a young adult. Chef's kiss. I feel like Laura Nolan does a really great job at doing that. We're following the story of Finn and Autumn and everything that has happened after coming off the first book. We get, I think there's 2 POVs in this book. We're following, yeah, I think there's 2 POVs. There's Finn's POV. No, there's 3 POVs, I believe. There's Finn's POV, it's his friend's POV, and then we get Autumn's POV at the end. And let me tell you, and I said I was bawling my eyes out crying, y'all. I was not joking. I just felt so bad for these characters because this is like, it's not a true story, but it's just something that I feel like is real and stuff that can happen to a young adult. But the way she even depicted grief and showing it in the friend, I know a lot of people were saying that they didn't really care for the friend's POV, but I thought the friend's POV was very much necessary, because in the first book we only see very much Finn and Autumn in their friend group separately in their POVs, but showing the friend POV, it just makes it feel a little bit more real about how the way Finn touched people's heart, and it also gives us another POV on how somebody else is viewing Autumn. So it takes away, I don't know what is it called when like you're like you can only see things in your point of view. Like, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it kind of just takes out that extra layer, and it adds a little bit of like proof and finality in like between Finn's and Autumn relationship, and like how they act, because we can see somebody else's point of view and see how Autumn was treating Finn, how Finn was treating Autumn, you know what I mean? But yeah, I do highly recommend people read this book, especially if you're like a teenager, or you're in high school, or you're in middle school. I think this would just be like a really good read. Might have gut wrenching, but I thought it was phenomenal. Alrighty guys, book number 8 was When Haru Was Here by Dustin Thau. I think that's how you say it. Sorry if I say his name wrong. But I gave it 2 stars, and this is a YA contemporary romance novel. And I didn't have high hopes going into this because I wasn't a big fan of You Reach Sam as well. But we're following the story of not Dustin. Oh my god. We're following the story of Daniel, and he basically is going through, I want to say, an identity crisis. But Daniel loves somebody, and he thought he was going to have relations with that person, but that person is not valuing Daniel in that same way. So when they go on this trip to Japan, he meets this one guy named Haru, and then after a while something happens and he starts seeing Haru everywhere. And we're basically following his story and navigating certain things in his life, like not going to college, and figure out basically what he wants to do after certain events have happened. But then there's a little twist at the end, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And then it had me thinking, our main character Daniel might be an unreliable narrator. And I don't know, the story was cute. It had a really good premise. I just think this is a story that somebody else would enjoy, because it wasn't a story that I really enjoy. I do go a little bit more in my Goodreads review if you want to check it out, but I don't want to say too much because I feel like everything that I don't like about the book would be like actually spoiling it, so I'm not going to do that. But that's just some food from thought, that if you do pick up this book, I think our main character is a very unreliable narrator, and I'll stand on that. And that's all I gotta say. Alrighty, our next book is Heaven Breaker by Sarah Wolf. This book I know giving 3 stars. This is a sci-fi fantasy dystopian kind of book. This book takes place in outer space, where you have the House of Hawk Claire's, and we're following our main character. I keep forgetting her name. where we're following our main character, and basically our main character is a bastard, and she was somebody who wasn't supposed to live, but she ends up acting revenge, but then she ends up meeting somebody who wants to form revenge and with her. And we're basically following that story as she fights in the trials to like basically claim her fame, to being the most powerful, I guess, in a way. I really enjoyed this story. I really didn't know what to expect coming into the story because I never read anything by Sarah Wolf. But I thought it was a pretty good story. I love the way it was told. I love how the way things were done. I thought it was pretty good. I just wasn't like head over heels for it. Like I wasn't like dying to finish the book. I love the plot, I love the pacing, and I love the characters, and I love that she used third person in this book. I thought that was also a really good, phenomenal choice as well. I'm excited to see what else this book has to offer. I think this is a series and there's a second book coming out, so we shall see. But if you haven't read Heaven Breaker, I think you should. It's something really different. Yeah, I thought it was something different, so. Alrighty, for book number 10 in May, I ended up reading Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, which I gave 4 stars. I'm not going to talk too much in depth about this book because I do have a read it vlog where you will see more of my thoughts and opinions in real time. So what I am going to say is that the girlies who said this wasn't romance, I'm afraid you have to eat your words, because Great Big Beautiful Life was the epitome of romance. Okay, I love our main characters, and I love that we had 2 stories going on at one time, and I love how the stories were interwoven and how they connected with our main characters. I don't remember their names. I don't remember any names of the people I read in any of these books. But yeah, but I feel like the impact we got from this book was really good, at least for me. I felt like when reading this book there was so much stuff that I learned in this book that I could like pick out and apply to my own life, and it really had me thinking and introspectively about my romance and my relationships, and like how I handled things in the past, and how can I take this and better it in my current relationship. Like, it had me really thinking when I was reading it. I thought Great Big Beautiful Life was a phenomenal read. I thought it was really, really good. And I'm just really glad that Emily Henry gives us complex characters and complex settings and plots when it comes down to her romance, and then she doesn't make it cookie cutter, because I feel like, to me, that depicts a more realistic version of romance. Because if you look at your romantic life or those around you, it's messy, it's ugly, it's to die for, it's to make you sad, it's to make you question yourself. And I feel like there's so many emotions that romance pulls out, that everything does not have to be a happily ever after. And I really enjoy the stakes that Emily Henry has gave us in A Great Big Beautiful Life, because not only was there stakes placed on our romantic interest between our 2 main characters, but there were stakes also claimed in grief, and also in our family dynamics as well, that I really appreciated for our main characters. So I definitely recommend people pick up A Great Big Beautiful Life. Read it for yourself. Always make your own conclusions. But for me, I just thought this book was the epitome of romance. And that's it. That's all I gotta say on it. For book 11, I'm not reading the last one, At the Wedding by Jason Rukalak. This is a thriller, and I gave this book 2 stars. And I was just so disappointed because I didn't know what to expect to come into this book, because I came off a 4-star read by him from his horror novel, Hidden Pictures. But this did not work for me. It definitely hit the mark. This book is utterly very, 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 very slow. And I'm telling you, like, we don't get any like conclusion and get into the nitty gritty of what's really making this a thriller until like maybe the last 100, maybe 50-ish pages, where everything starts connecting together. But even by reading this, I'm just like, okay, if anything, I feel like this should be considered more of a mystery. I feel like this is giving more mystery than it is giving thriller. There was no like stakes for me when reading this. If anything, I feel like more like we were trying to figure out who's the culprit, which gives more mystery than it does with thriller. And I feel like with thriller there has to be some kind of stake, and I just did not see the stake. We have this dad who's kind of estranged from his daughter after they had a little falling out. Randomly he gets a call from his daughter. His daughter's like, hey, yo dad, I want you to come to my wedding. And he's like, what's up? Like, you're getting married? Like, you have so much going on. They haven't been talking. So he's just like, okay, I want to meet your fiance. I want to meet his family, his mom, his dad. You know, I'm so happy for you, baby. But there's a lot more going down at the wedding than what's being told to him. So that's kind of the story that we're following in this. I think it had a really good premise. I thought it was really intriguing. But I feel like this book might be better suited for other people, and I just think this wasn't a book for me, which makes me sad. But nonetheless, I'm going to read some more of Jason Rukulak's work, because Hidden Pictures was so freaking good. So I think maybe he should come out with another horror book and maybe leave the thrillers alone, or maybe give us a horror thriller. Now that, I feel like will do it for me. Alright, y'all. Book number 12. Let's talk about Savor It by Tara DeWitt. I gave this book 2 stars. This is a romance. We're following the story of Sage and Fisher. Sage basically lives in a small town in Oregon, and she basically does like do everything for like the whole town. She's very beloved. She's like the golden girl. And then we have Fisher, who is this high star chef. He has Michelin restaurants and Michelin stars, but then his life starts taking a turn. His restaurant loses a Michelin star. His boss is like, hey yo, you need to go figure your stuff out. I'm gonna shift you down here to Oregon where we got some business going on, and then if you do good there, you can come back and work your life out. And basically following the story between Fisher and Sage, basically. This book was a slow burn. I did not know what to expect because this was also a new author for me. And based off the premise, I thought it was going to be a really good story. This author says this is a romantic comedy, but this book gives you like dad jokes, corny pun-ish jokes. It's not like laughing out of your seat because you heard the funniest joke in the world. It's more on the corny, cringy side. But this is a very, 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 very slow burn. But let me tell you, once the slow burn has ended and they're burning for each other, I'm afraid she kind of ate that up. But overall for me, I wasn't really invested in any of our main characters nor the plot. The setting was cute. I love the setting. I love a small town romance. But it just really, there was just something that wasn't really clicking for me, and I was kind of debating between giving this book a 2-star or a 3-star. But now that but looking back at it, I'm pretty sure this is a book I probably won't even reread, so that's part of the reason why I gave it a 2-star. I really think this book is good and it did what it needed to do. I just think this book is good and needed to do better for somebody else. It just wasn't the book for me. And let's get into book number 13. I read Sunrise on a Reaping by Miss Suzanne Collins. I gave it 3 stars, y'all. I'm not going to talk too much about this because it's also going to be in a reading vlog of how many pages I read in a week, where I give more in depth on my thoughts. But y'all, I really think Sunrise on a Reaping by Suzanne Collins was a cash grab. I feel like there was nothing new given to us. If you're somebody who truly wants to read The Hunger Games over again, but just want to really read Haymitch's story, that's exactly what this book is. I thought this book was going to give us something new, because when we got Ballads of Songbirds and Snake, it was a new ideal. We got to see what made The Hunger Games to The Hunger Games that we know in the trilogy. But when it came to when it came down to Sunrise and a Reaping, when I tell you I was so utterly disappointed, and I'm giving it grace. The only reason why I'm giving this book 3 stars because of Suzanne Collins. Really, I wanted to give it 2 stars because I just feel like this book wasn't necessary. I feel like she literally wrote this because all the fans were just like, Haymitch story. Haymitch is not that important. I mean, he is, but he's not that important. I feel like Suzanne could have really gave us a briefing of his story, but also him as a mentor. All the people he had to keep mentoring in 12 that never made it back from the Hunger Games. and really show us his demise and his spiral year after year and after year to get to the Haymitch that we know. I think it would have even been cute to see a little bit of who Haymitch is, and like that hope he got back, that spark he got back after the end of Catching Fire, when we see Katniss and Peeta together with Child. I feel like there's so many ideas Suzanne could have gave us, but I didn't think a repeat of telling me the Hunger Games was beneficial. Like, and even if she really wanted to write another book that was gonna stand out against the test of time, I think writing a book about the very first rebellion, before the very first Hunger Games, writing us a book between the rebellion to give us exactly the Hunger Games with an 8. I'm sorry. I think at this point Suzanne should leave the Hunger Games alone. Don't touch it, Bookie. At this point, you are a historian. Your books will forever go down in history as some of the greatest dystopian books we will ever come across. But at this point, I feel like anything else that she produces out of the Hunger Games is probably just going to be a no for me, and I probably won't touch because I was so disappointed with Sunrise on the Reaping. I digress. That's all I'm going to say. And scene. And finally, we made it to our last book. Let's talk about the 13th book I read in May. This is Dune by Frank Herbert. I gave it 3 stars. This is a sci-fi dystopian book, and I really enjoyed it. I did not know what to expect coming into this book, but I was not disappointed. I would say in the beginning it was really hard for me to like really visualize everything in my head. I understood what was going on, but there was like no feedback playing in my head, so I did have to like watch a couple TikToks of people not explaining Doom but explaining better ways to understand the words in my head. And one guy said watch the movies because the movies are pretty much accurate. There's some stuff that's obviously changed, but for the most part it's pretty much accurate, and it just helps you to put like names to faces. It just helps you see like what the worlds look like, and I really enjoyed it. We're following Peter. Is it Peter? Is his name Peter? No, his name is Paul, and we're following Paul after his families, the Atreides, are moved to Arrakis, and their goal is to basically up the spice production on Arrakis and basically help this after the emperor sent them there. But little did they know that the emperor and the house of Harkonnens have been planning against the House of Atreides, and we're basically watching like this story unfold. But little did they know that Paul is supposed to be this like great like prophet or whatever, and so we're really following the story of Paul, the House of Atreides, and the House of Arrakis. But we're really following Paul and how he is living among the Freemen after everything that just happens, and we're really just watching Paul become the great Duke of Atreides that he is supposed to be, that his father and his mother has raised him to be. I really thought this was a really good novel. I definitely understand how this book is a classic and how it definitely shaped the sci-fi, fantasy, dystopian genre in a way. And I just like really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars because it did take me a little while to get into it, but I wasn't like putting the book down and feeling like I immediately had to pick it back up. But I really thought this was a great start to the series. I am going to read the other 2 books. I haven't decided if I'm going to read all 6 books, but how it was explained to me and what I saw is that the first 3 books are their own thing. They're a trilogy, and that the other 3 books are just like books just because, not books because you need to read them, although they're all a part of Dune. So right now I am going to read the trilogy, and then we'll see after the trilogy if I'm going to read the other 3 books. And yeah, that's everything that I have to say about Dune. Alrighty guys, if you made it this far, that means you have made it to the end of the video. So let's go ahead and get into these reading stats, because homegirl, we did our big one. I read 14 books. I read 5,487 pages. We read 3 thrillers, 1 romantasy, 1 historical fiction, 1 literary fiction, 1 fantasy, 4 romances, 2 sci-fis, and 1 dystopian novel. So all in all, I definitely did my big one in May. I didn't realize how many books I read until we literally just sat here and filmed this. I thought I read 10 books. I didn't realize I read 14. So I can't wait to see where June takes me in my reading month. Maybe we can do 15 books. We shall see. I'm not gonna push it. But how did y'all do in May with y'all reading wrap ups? How many books did we read? How many pages? And if you read any of the books that I have read in May or previously, what did you think about them? Do you think my opinions stand true? Do you agree? Do we disagree? Let's talk about it in the comments. Until then, I see you all in the next one, and I love you. Bye. Mwah.